Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for this lunchtime webinar covering customer centricity with Dynamics 365. Today we'll have Grant Barker, who heads up our advisory and project delivery practice, to talk to you about just what customer centricity means, and myself, Matthew Tan, who heads up the Superfluid business, which is a Microsoft application delivery partner, to do a brief demo on Microsoft Dynamics 365. Over to you, Grant. I'll let you kick things off.
Thanks, Matt. So what are we going to go through today? First of all, briefly sort of the challenge of customer expectations, how they're changing briefly. Then some work we've done and insights around the four key capabilities you need for a highly effective customer experience strategy and customer centricity. What's needed to achieve one of the key elements of that, customer Acuity. Then Matt will be taking us through how that shows up in Microsoft Dynamics 365 and what quick wins could be achieved there. So I'll be taking us through the first few points. So customer expectations are changing, and to stay competitive, being customer-centric is essential. There's a lot of studies which underpin this. This is no longer something which is theoretical, but there's a lot of work being done to show that customer centricity and focus on the customer, what's good for the customer, is at the end of the day good for your business. Sounds like motherhood, but that goes well beyond just selling to customers and working with customers, and really to putting customers at the heart of the way you think and do things in the business. So what are the issues that we're seeing today when you look at CRM and related systems? A lot of what we see from a technical viewpoint and also process, they're very transactional, and often delegated to a sort of a record-keeping tool rather than really an insights tool. Often relegated to sales teams, and they're seen in the sales tools and aren't really integrated through the business. And there's a lot more that obviously CRM and related tools can do through the business than purely as a sales pipeline management tool. Next thing is that often organisations will have an inside-out rather than outside-in approach. What does that mean? Inside-out really is just recording our view of what we see of the customer in a CRM or other systems, rather than really having insight into the customer's view of us. Sounds like almost the same, but it's actually an important difference the way we look at things. Failure to use insights from data. So the other thing is a lot of CRM work is often doesn't drive insights necessarily. It really just, as I said, it's more transactional, and we're not looking to gain insights into customer behaviours, what they're doing, what they might be doing, what they're looking for, to actually drive how we're interacting with them, the journeys they're going on with us as a business. And the last point is generally don't incorporate the needs of potential customers. So it's often we're only capturing the customers we have, but not our potential customers, whether they be in early days of the pipeline or even outside that. So really insight into the customers we don't necessarily have as a customer today. And that comes back to that transactional sort of inside-out view. There's a lot that drives that. So what does effective customer experience and centricity really look like? First of all, it's an integrated view. And as I said before, if you focus on the way the customer does things and the way you make decisions, and put the customer at the centre, you're setting yourself up for short and long-term success. So what does customer centricity look like? We've seen there are basically four capabilities you need. The first one of those is Acuity, which I'll be going into a little bit more detail today. Acuity is really around deeply understanding and being attuned to your customer. Awareness is getting more to a greater understanding and attunement to what's going on in the market, what competitors are doing, what regulation, depending on your industry, what may be impacting it, changes in regulations, statutory elements which may impact changes, through to disruptive new entrants to the market, to what's technology potentially going to present your customers with in terms of new opportunities etc. The next component is around collaboration. So this is really getting more internal to the organisation. So the next element around customer centricity is how well you as an organisation can collaborate across the organisation. And this is really almost getting to the point of breaking down the process and organisational barriers you have. You have an organic structure which has grown within an organisation regardless of size. There's processes which are required. But when we talk about customer centricity and addressing and dealing with customers, a higher degree of collaboration, which may not be able to be pressed into a certain process, is key to that. And the fourth element, or fourth capability which is required, is around business alignment. So then working back and saying, is our business strategy, our operational strategies, are they aligned to customers? So if we're really serious about putting the customer at the centre of the way we decide, our insights, we've got awareness of what's going on in the market, we're collaborating, but is our strategy aligned with that? And that is simple things like, well, what is the nature of our business in terms of the way we want to be growing it? Are we looking to greater innovation? Are we looking at maintaining our client customer base? Are we in a mature market? These all determine different ways that we need to be dealing with our customer and the insights we need. It's quite different if we're looking to expand into new products, new markets. That obviously needs much higher awareness of the market, the regulatory environment of that, but also the understanding of the needs of customers we don't necessarily have, as distinct from maintaining and growing within the customer base we have, which means we really have a deep understanding of the customers and the challenges they're facing. So that's really around business alignment and really saying, is our strategies, are they aligned, and our planning aligned with that customer centricity? So let's look at the first, and I wouldn't say the most important, but the first cornerstone of centricity, which is going to be the focus of today's webinar. As I said before, competitive edge means putting your customers at the centre and their first priority. And an important part of this is that doesn't mean that everything the customer says is right. There's obviously within the balance of the business you're running, but that fundamental thinking that what's good for the customer is good for your business within balance. That does mean, on the flip side, there may be customers that are not good for your business necessarily, and therefore they're not customers you want to have. So it doesn't mean doing everything the customer wants, but doing within balance. So what's Acuity about? This is really, as I said before, about a deep understanding of the customer's current and future experience and their needs, and really underpinning this with facts. So moving away from gut feeling, which is important to an extent, but really being much more data and fact driven on this. Now, what does that mean? So it means a few things. Firstly, what are the customer journeys that your customers go on? So people may have heard the term customer journey, but really applying it and understanding what is the life cycle of your customers, the different journeys they go in the organisation, from the point they may become a new customer, through to their first order, through the ordering processes and how you're actually dealing in sales, through to after sales service, to when they exit. So all that journey of the client customer through your organisation, the touch points and how they play a role there. Now, understanding that and mapping that is really, really important, because what that allows you then see is all the elements which play into influencing that journey. So that, interestingly, will include, well, what about when they deal with our legal department, or when we have legal components, and that in the contracting phases, for instance. So you end up picking up all those elements which actually influence in some way the customer journey, whether it be the nature of the experience they're having in terms of how long it takes, the type of contact they're having, the clarity, etc. So the first thing is really understanding the customer journey that they're going on and what's happening and where the breakdowns to that. The second part of this is around customer behaviour. So really understanding the patterns of behaviour which our customers have, and future behavioural changes which may be occurring, which you can see in the market. And there's obviously studies, things that we read about changing behaviours, whether it be millennials, new millennials and people's changing behaviours due to technology, etc. But understanding that. And really important here is underpinning this with data analytics to really give fact-based models. Obviously, when you're in industries and organisations which have a large customer base, so it's more B2C type organisations, there's a much larger wealth of information than perhaps in the B2B. But even in B2B, you can analyse the data of the interactions with customers, both from a transactional perspective as well as from a sales interaction perspective, and even from the unstructured interactions, whether it be from a call centre and text analytics, etc., to really understand the behaviours and models and the triggers behind those customers. The next element relates to the journeys and is around customer experience. And this is around really capturing as close as possible to the customer the experience they're having with the organisation. And this can be done through, obviously, if you're having calls with clients, customers, that's capturing interactions, discussions with them. There's a lot of tools today around text analytics, converting that into text, analysing that, which gives an insights into to what they're thinking at any point in the process they're going through, as well as things like after-sales surveys or after-contact surveys with customers, etc. But it also means something which is often not done or done well is tapping in the insights across the organisation. And what that means is that you've got people in the call centre, you've got people behind the scenes who are interacting with customers or have insights which you may not have directly through the interaction. So it's tapping into the entire, as much of the entire insights that you have as an organisation with the customer and understanding their experience and where it's breaking down. And the last component of Acuity is around metrics. So a lot of these things I've been talking about obviously give an insight into interactions, the journeys that are going on, etc. But what's then important is that we're able to measure these. So the round customer metrics is things like net promoter scores or customer satisfaction scores, which are not so great, but are also used, customer effort scores. So we don't, once again, we don't want to be killing customers with surveys to get this information, but really be able to measure over time the type of interactions we have with the customer. Is their effort that they feel they're perceiving that they've been dealing with you, is that improving? Are they net promoters or not, etc.? Really measuring that with time, that gives us an ability to see how we're tracking in our journey. So on that then, what does that mean, the type of questions to be asking? So we're talking about Acuity. So deep customer Acuity really needs to sit at the heart of all we're doing around customer centricity. And that means process, organisation, insights, experience are all part of this. So what are the type of questions we need to be asking ourselves to actually determine how good are we at this and what do we need to improve? And this is the set of the core questions. First of all, do we understand the customer journey or journeys that the customers are going on with us? It's interesting because our experience is that that question is usually answered quite soon with a yes. But when you really start sitting down and trying to map it out, you understand how many gaps we actually have in understanding the journeys that our customers go on and all the components that play into influencing that journey. Second is, what's the journey the customer's gone on through our organisation? So one is understanding the journey. The other one is, what's the nature of that journey in terms of the experience and where that's breaking down today? How does the customer exchange will change based on that experience they're having? Where's it breaking down? And what's the customer actually asking us? So often we're selling them a service, we're selling them a product, or we are answering a query. But when we unpick that, there's a lot of research to show that actually customers are actually asking us to do something for them and really understanding what that is. There's some recent, Clayton Christensen, who is sort of leading thinker around the whole idea of disruption, has recently brought out a new book and some new research, which really asks the question that we rethink the customer, really saying, what is the reason behind why they're buying from us? What is the task that they're outsourcing to us? Or what's the activity, what's that outsourcing they're doing? And that's interesting, because that goes beyond the product or service, because even a product, at the end of the day, the customer is outsourcing to us something they want to achieve, whether that be a car they're trying to buy, some industrial equipment, whatever. Someone is outsourcing something to us. So really understanding what are they truly asking us. And what are the patterns of behaviour exist? So part of this, do we really understand the behaviours that our customers should display? Do we understand what are the indicators when customers may be ready to churn, that we may be losing a customer? Do we have the data for that? And the final question, do we not really know what customers are saying? Are we really capturing that? Do we understand how easy it was for the customer to interact with us, to achieve what they want to achieve? And doing that from a customer perspective, not from our perspective. It's very easy. We've seen a lot of organisations which will interpret people's interpretation. I think the customers had a good experience. I think moving the customer culture to actually understand that, no, it's not what we think the customer experience is, but what the customer is perceiving as their experience. So these are sort of key questions which, depending on your answer, we'll see how tuned, how true is our acuity when it comes to customers. So, enablers. On that initial diagram earlier in the webinar, you'd have seen that around the 4 components, there are also enablers. Obviously, underpinning capabilities are key things which enable that. And at the heart of this is really a principle as well, that you need to get complexity out of processes in order to properly address customer needs. There's a high correlation between customer centricity, acuity, and simplification of the way an organisation works. Simplification not just in what we would classically call some of the customer-facing processes, but things behind that. Anything from how our legal reviews happen on contracts, how we determine terms and conditions, all those type of things play into looking at that simplification. So that's probably one of the most key enablers, is connecting customer centricity around simplification, but it gives simplification a focus then that goes beyond pure efficiency or productivity to simplification through the eyes of the customer. So when we look at the enablers, you'll see here 4 key elements. First of all, people. So do we have customer-aligned structures? So really having to look at the way our organisation is set up, and are the structures really empowering and enabling customer centricity? Or do we have automatic barriers in an organisation which slow things down, which hinder a collaboration or insight? The other one is key here around shared and customer-aligned KPIs. So do we have just individual KPIs and we drive the organisation, which tends to drive to siloed thinking? Or do we have people who are have shared KPIs which are customer-focused, which is enabling and promoting collaboration, working together towards the customer? So these are 2 key elements around the people element of enablers. Next component really around process, and this is what I got to before. First of all, how are we integrating insights? So how are we actually taking the insights we gain in the types of interactions we have with customers, what the customers are telling you about effort, etc., and integrating that into process improvement or other improvements in the organisation, and then how we are simplifying behind that, the second component. The third, the technology. So at the centre of this is around the agility of our technology. How rapidly can we change and alter our technology around for the customer's needs change? The analytics, do we have analytics capability? Modularity, so we can swap in and swap out components as needed to meet customer needs. And the fourth component here, mobility. Customers, regardless of actually B2C, B2B, whatever, are looking to mobility and mobile applications. And the last one is more the cultural behavioural aspects. Enablers here, customer curiosity, that people in the organisation, throughout the organisation, are really curious about the customer, understanding them, interacting. Promotion of teamwork, that gets back to the collaboration component. Accountability, that people feel personally accountable throughout the organisation for the customer's experience, and that people have business thinking. So that's balancing just swing right over to everything the customer wants we do, to really thinking that from a business context. So these are the enablers which underpin those capabilities. So before I hand over to Matt, so what is it? Implementing Acuity as the first step in the Centricity. There are really 3 steps. And important here, we see starting off with the customer future rather than some sort of gap assessment up front is important. So clearing what is that future journey of the customer, what are some moments of truth, what does the customer future look like, how should it look? Then going from that to what are the gaps we have in our current environment. Why do we see it in that order rather than classically sort of what have we got today, where do we need to be? Is this starts driving thinking purely from the customer and doesn't drive an incremental change to what's there today. So if you start with where we are today and just gaps, you will tend to get an incremental improvement. And 9 times out of 10, that is not going to be adequate if you really want to go in this direction. And then the third map is the roadmap. So how do you then translate? That's where the future customer journey and experience needs to be. These are gaps we have today, translating that to a clear roadmap. So that's the architecture of both the process, business architecture, your technology architecture. What's the path of migration? This is not going to happen in one step. What are the 2 or 3 steps we need to get there? Well, how will we have to redesign process and other activities? Well, what are the target metrics and outcomes to be achieved? That's getting back to the point I made before, the ability to measure this. So also saying out in our roadmap, what does that metric look like over time? So that was sort of short and sharp, just on the first capability around customer centricity, Acuity, that really deep understanding of client needs. So I'll hand over now to Matt, who will take us through how does that start to play out when we look into the Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment.
Thank you, Grant. Just a couple more slides, folks, and I'll jump into a demo. So just tailing off on the end there from what Grant was talking about. You know, the key question that I guess I'm going to try and address here is how can a CRM system or a technology platform support customer centricity? And it's a pretty big topic, and as you've just seen, there's a lot of questions and things that you need to think about for a full end-to-end customer strategy. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to attack all of those in the next few minutes, but I'd like to hone in on the Acuity, really understanding the customer, making decisions based on facts as opposed to anecdote. So we'll go through some examples there, and really for a lot of us here on the webinar today, ourselves included here at State of Matter, the key question is the customer going to leave us? All right. So how can we use technology to help answer some of these questions? So what you see up on the screen at the moment is a bit of Microsoft slideware. It's Dynamics 365 in the context of the Microsoft ecosystem. So that pink box there is what Dynamics CRM used to be. If you didn't already realize, recently Microsoft has rebranded that platform and has actually combined the core CRM platform with its ERP product and now call it Dynamics 365. So it's an all-encompassing platform that handles everything from basically quote to cash, you know, where you have salespeople and marketing people generating leads and closing opportunities, all the way through to signing a bit of piece of work and then handling the operational back-end process to provision, procure, manufacture, whatever it might be in the ERP. And if you look at the wider platform, you know, a lot of people probably use Office 365, so there's very tight interoperability with that, as well as their BI stack. Power BI, the Cortana Intelligence Suite, and Azure IoT, all of these things provide key inputs in terms of customer data, but also allow you to understand customer behaviour a lot faster and more effective than you had before. And then below all that is what they call the common data model, and I'll touch on that in the demo. So without further ado, I'll just minimize that presentation and just switch the screen over. So I'll just give that a moment, let that screen refresh. In a few moments, you'll see the Dynamics 365 interface. For those of you that use Dynamics CRM at the moment, it's not going to look too different. It has moved into more of an app model from a lot. It's really helped cost out the product. So it's licensing driven, but you've got many different apps that you can now purchase. And so instead of buying the whole platform and paying a large sum of money for it, you buy what you need and you can grow into additional capabilities down the track. So if all you're looking at the moment is to answer questions around engagement during the sales and potentially marketing process, then you would just buy an app for sales as an example. And you can see on the left there's a few apps that I've got access to as an administrator, but your salespeople will obviously access the sales app. And then within there, you're going to have many different capabilities within the platform. So again, as a super user, I've got access across all the apps, so I don't actually have to go in and change which app I access. I can actually access all the different app information from here. So at the moment, we're going to focus this demo here on sales, but recognizing that there is capability in the platform to cover, service, marketing, voice of the customer, which is surveys, being able to deliver field service capabilities if you have staff that work remotely or out in the field, or project service if you're a project-run business. So what we'll start off with today is just that typical dashboard most people start off with during the day, and from a customer perspective, well, from an individual perspective, I should say, it gives the user a very quick snapshot into what's happening with their workload in terms of opportunities, how they're tracking against their target, how they're tracking against their colleagues, and any sort of leads that they're dealing with. But I won't spend too much time on sales automation capabilities. What I'll do is I'll jump into a customer record, and we can drill into some of the details, the data, and the understanding of a particular customer that I've created. So I'm just going to jump into a customer we all should be able to recognise, BHP Billiton. So I'll let that screen refresh in front of you. So just on this screen here, if regardless of whether I'm a sales person or I'm a customer service person or I'm a marketing person or I'm an executive, there's a lot of information relating to a customer that we typically have multiple systems within our organisation that captures that data. So, how do I get a snapshot of all of that, and then how do I use that information to make decisions from? So we can see on here there's a list of activities, and we can see conversations that people have been having with various people within BHP. I can see all the different contact points within BHP. I can also see the revenue by month, and that's pretty interesting to me. I can see what BHP is spending and when over a rolling 12-month period. So we can see there were some spikes earlier in the year, but in the last 5 months it's tapered off. So that could mean a multitude of things. Maybe they're going through some internal change. Can we do any actions based on that at the moment? No. It's almost anecdotal, even though this is facts. Let's couple this with some other data points as well, and see if we can come up with some actions from that. So we can also look down. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see the NPS score. So we track NPS through the Dynamics 365 platform through a feature called Voice of the Customer, which just comes part of the product, and so that regularly does NPS surveys and all the different types of measures that Grant covered off earlier, including customer effort score. The one that I'm focusing on here is the NPS metric, so the Net Promoter Score, so how likely is a customer to promote our organisation. And we can see it's fairly consistent, but in the last month it's dropped off. So that could indicate that because it's a rolling average that there's been a problem somewhere in the last couple of months, which might have impacted on the experience of BHP in dealing with us as an organisation. If we look at to the right there, the digital interaction, so these could include things like EDMs, electronic direct mails. It could be website visits. So what we do is we aggregate all that information into a chart, which allows us to then view holistically what all the different people or individuals within BHP and how they're interacting digitally with our organisation. So that's without a human being involved. And we can see that that's slowly dropped off over time too. So that's interesting as well. So with all these three bits of information and other information that we might capture in our CRM system, it could be service history and time it takes to close off a case or a service request. The system actually pumps all that data into a learning model in Azure machine learning to calculate the churn risk. So, as an executive of a company, I'm very keen and interested in understanding, whether one of my biggest clients is going to churn. And so what it does is it actually takes all that data across all your customers, and based on revenue behaviour or NPS feedback or digital interactions, or whether we're hitting SLAs from a customer service perspective, it'll actually learn over time and understand when a customer is likely to churn. So at the moment, that's probably too high at 65%. We want that well down in the 10 or 20%. So we can use the platform is there to support and provide that sort of intelligence to us very, very quickly, and everyone in our organisation that has access to CRM can see that. Just quickly, this is probably a bit of a tangent, but I'm just going to hop into Voice of the Customer just to give you an idea of what a survey might look like. So I think that's a question in a few people's head there, on how you capture that information. So what you're going to do is you set up a survey not too dissimilar to what you see on screen at the moment, where it basically asks them a standard question, and you might append that or schedule that to go out monthly, or you might append that to the end of a service request, and as a link at the bottom when a service request gets resolved, and people can fill that in, and you can measure the participation rates, who clicks on it, who fills it in, all the way to the actual feedback, and it's really just a point and click interface there. So yeah, that's all I plan to show at the moment. If anyone has any questions, I've kind of gone through it really, really quickly, and there's probably a lot more you want to see. Feel free to ask a question in the webinar panel, and we'll answer it verbally. Otherwise, feel free to email us if you have any other questions or want to see a more in-depth demo of Dynamics 365, or even talk to us about how you can put together a customer strategy. So I'll let people ask questions.
Yeah, so there's a question around the surveys and some of these metrics. The last item that Matt took us through here, and how does this link back to Acuity and just really gaining insights? Matt took us through, obviously, NPS or customer effort scores all give an insight on their own, but the power of this and linking it back through machine learning is, at what point of that journey did that score come up? For instance, we may be getting a pattern where we're seeing that the scores are particularly bad when the customer has contacted us because of a service issue, or to deal with an invoice query, and not just necessarily at the end of a sales process. So the linking of those things are really deep insights. They're starting to give us insights not only into be able to calculate churn, but also be able to link it back to say, where do we need to improve, where do we have breakdowns in our process? And I think that's one of the power of doing this type of surveys, and then be able to link it back to at what point of the customer's journey did that type of information come in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just seeing if anyone else wants to ask a question. Feel free to type it into the window. While there might be people asking questions, I might just jump back to the account view. Someone was interested in how the revenue numbers get in there. So the actual revenue numbers here, if you notice there, it actually says orders, and you know, in a typical sales and order process, orders could be created out of CRM, but they could also be created in an ERP. So in this example here, the orders exist within the ERP system, so the operations app within Dynamics 365. And what we've actually done is we've used one of the products called Flow and the common data model to basically, when an order gets fulfilled, it writes a record back into CRM on the date, so we actually can track, you know, when the revenue gets invoiced, basically, and that appears in CRM as read-only format, and obviously able to report and display a chart on it. You know, if I wanted to go into the detail of that, I can actually look at the orders there. I can also see the rest of the you know, the different interactions that we might be capturing, all the different data capture points that might be related to this particular customer, and obviously that can be fed into that same, you know, machine learning model to then feed out intelligence on different customer behaviours. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, so what we might do is wrap it up. Thank you everyone for your time. A recording will be made available upon the finish of this webinar. And yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any other questions or would like to hear more about anything we've discussed today. Thank you everyone.